Okay, let's start our notes for the day. Okay, it's really kind of our first day that we've taken notes like on notebook paper. So can I make it clear what I want from you when we take notes? Okay, so today on notebook paper, because we've taken notes before, right? It was just on a worksheet or on a foldable or something like that, right? Okay, so when we're taking notes on our notebook paper, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to write the date. Okay, and then right beside that, we want to write the topic. Well, what's our topic for today? Absolute value, whoops, if I can spell value correctly, equations. Okay, absolute value equations. So the date and the topic will be at the top of each page of notes. Is everybody okay with that? Okay. And then I'm going to give you some problems. I'm going to give you some examples. Okay. Sometimes, like today, I'm going to give you an example that's actually not an absolute value equation because I need to show you that you already know how to do absolute value equations mostly. Okay. So here's where we're going to start. 2x plus 5 equals 13. 2x plus 5 equals 13. Is this a kind of equation you know how to solve? Yeah, what would you do first? Oh my gosh, I love your vocabulary. That's excellent. Subtract 5 on both sides. Because if all you ever say is minus 5, well, from where? Do you remember that you have to do it from both sides? The fact that you're explaining yourself using correct math vocabulary makes me happy. If you have a problem with that, you should get over it now. Okay, so when we subtract 5 from both sides, what do we end up with? 2x equals 8. Very good. And what's last to do? Divide by 2 on both sides. Excellent. So x actually equals 4. And is that the right answer? Do you know that for sure? Oh, we could plug it back in to be sure, right? What is 2 times 4? 8 plus 5? Does 13 equal 13? On every planet that I've been to, right? Which for the record is 1. It's just 1, okay? So here's what an absolute value equation is going to look like. 2x plus 5 equals 13. This is what an absolute value equation looks like, okay? What do you know about absolute value? It can't be negative. So if it's a negative 2, if we're taking the absolute value of negative 2, it's positive 2. Do you know the definition of absolute value? How far away it's from 0, right? That's kind of like a real basic definition. You know what the graph looks like, don't you? What's the graph of an absolute value look like? A V, right? These are all things that we already know about absolute value, which I have to be honest makes my job a little bit easier that you already know all that stuff, right? Okay, so all I have to do is teach you how to solve the equations, okay? So here's the thing. What I'm covering up right now, we're ignoring it for a second, but what I'm covering up right now, what is it allowed to equal? 13. What else is it allowed to equal? If I take the value of what number, the absolute value of what number, what is it going to be? That's 13. Also negative 13, right? Does everybody understand that? So there's actually 2 things that this can equal, right? It can be 13 and it can be negative 13. Because if I take the absolute value of 13, I get 13. And if I take the absolute value of negative 13, I get 13. So it's the number inside the absolute value that can be either positive 13 or negative 13, right? So anytime I'm solving an absolute value equation, I need to remind myself I need 2 equations. I need 2 equations. And therefore, how many answers am I going to get? 2 answers, okay? Now, that's not always true, but we hardly ever say always and never in math, okay? maybe later if I'm feeling like super happy, I'll show you when it doesn't. But maybe not, because it's not really important, okay? This thing right here can be positive, right? Or this thing right here can be negative, right? So I need to rewrite this problem 2 times. One where this is positive, or it is what it is, and one where this is negative. This is all it gives you on a problem. Okay? This is all it gives you on a problem, and you have to know it's got to go to 2. Does that make sense? Okay? So, does everybody understand why I wrote this as this is positive? Is there allowed to be minuses in this? Yes. It's just whatever it was, I just bring it down. That's the positive version of it. And then this is the negative version of it. Does that make sense? Okay? So, you just proved to me that you already know how to solve this one, don't you? Let me do it real quick so we have our work shown, right? Because it's important to have work shown. Minus 5 minus 5. 2x equals 8 divided by 2 divided by 2. X equals 4. Everybody's okay with that, right? Okay. What do I do here? So I actually have 2 options, right? One of them, you're either saying it with your mouth or you're showing me with your hands. You got to distribute, right? For the record, both of those are good forms of communication, okay? Because sometimes you may not remember the vocabulary word, or you may not want to say it out loud, but you want to show me you know what to do, and I'm fine with that. That's good, okay? You know I prefer the vocabulary only because that's something we're working on this year, right? Correct math vocabulary, but at least I know you know what to do, right? That's one way to do it. And I'm going to go ahead and do it that way, this problem, because that's the way most of you first thought of, right? Okay? So let's distribute that negative to each term right here, okay? For the record, I'll do the other way in the next example. Is that all right? Okay? So negative 2x minus 5 equals 13. How do I solve this problem? Perfect. Adding 5 to both sides gives me negative 2x equals 18. And then, perfect, dividing both sides by negative 2 gives me x equals negative 9. Now, which one of these answers is right? So that sounded more like a question. You're like, both of them? We could check, though, couldn't we? 4. 2 times 4. 8 plus 5. What is the absolute value of 13? Does 13 equal 13? Yeah, so we know that's right. We kind of knew it was right before, but we for sure know it's right now, right? What about negative 9? What's 2 times, negative 9? Negative 18 plus 5, negative 13. What is the absolute value of negative 13? So I know that both of them are correct. And in fact, a minute ago, we said we really most of the time need to get 2 answers, don't we? Okay? We start with 2 equations, so most of the time we should get 2 answers, yes? Got it? Okay. So what about this problem? 4 times the absolute value of 3x plus 11 minus 5 equals 15. Don't look at me like that. They're like this. Oh my gosh, this is so much harder. No, it's not. You know how to do this, right? Don't you know how to do this? Yes. I hear the confidence. What should we do first? So that's a good guess. What do you want to do first? Add 5 to both sides is what we need to do, right? Because now some people earlier said, well, we should make 2 equations. Oh, you are so right that we've got to have 2 equations, but we can't make 2 equations until the absolute value is isolated. So I need to do everything I can to get everything away from this absolute value first. And when we solve equations like this, normally our order is to add 5 to both sides and get 4 times the absolute value of 3x plus 11 equals 20, and then divide everything by 4. Isn't that our normal procedure? Yeah? Okay. So now I have the absolute value of 3x plus 11 equals 5. Now is my absolute value isolated? Yes. So now what do I want to do? Yeah, now I want two equations. That's exactly right. Okay, now I want two equations. So what's my first equation? 3x plus 11 equals 5. It's whatever was inside, I bring it down, and it equals 5. What's my second equation? So negative 3x plus 11 equals 5. Now, what you said was not wrong. I need us to do it this way, right? Because what you did was already multiply the negative through, right? But remember a second ago I told you there was two different ways to do this? And on the next example, I wanted to do it the other way. Only so you could see both ways, okay? Plus, I know where we're going next. If you search up solving absolute value equations on the internet, they write it differently than I do. They write 3x plus 11 equals 5, 3x plus 11 equals negative 5. But to me, that's implying that the number outside can be positive or negative. But if you think about the definition of absolute value, the number inside can be positive or negative, not the outside, right? Okay? And I know where we're going next, and this, I think, is the best way to teach it to you so that when we get to the thing that's next, you don't have to memorize a bunch of rules, because nobody likes rules. We follow them because we're good human beings, right? But nobody likes rules. Okay? I know how much you guys hate the F rule, right? Sometimes you just want to forget it. I know. Okay, so what should we do first? Solve the first equation. Okay, I think that's a great thing to do first. How do we want to solve this first equation? If I subtract 11 from both sides, I get 3x equals negative 6. Okay? Now what should I do? Somebody else who hasn't tried yet. If I divide both sides by 3, what does x equal? Negative 2. Now, on the last example, we distributed and solved from there, right? This is where I want to show you that there's a different way to do this and show you how to do it. Is that fair? What I could do instead is divide both sides by negative 1 to begin with. If I divide both sides by negative 1 to begin with, I end up with 3x plus 11 equals negative 5. Because negative divided by negative is positive, right? Then if I subtract 11 from both sides, I get 3x equals negative 16. And then dividing by 3 on both sides gives me x equals negative 16 thirds. Not always. It depends on the situation. That's a good question. It's a good observation, but it's not always. Like if the number started as a negative 5, and if I divide both sides by negative 1, now it's a positive 5, right? So it just depends. Yes. Yeah. Can I answer that question tomorrow? Because I think tomorrow it will make sense, hopefully. Okay? Okay. Are people panic when these are our answers? Okay? Now I'm not talking about real panic. I'm talking about math panic, right? Right? They're like, wait a second, but she just said absolute values can't be negative. And I got two answers that are negative. Can the answers be negative? Yes. My x, the values for x's are allowed to be negative. What I pull out of the absolute value can't be negative. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's plug these in and make sure they work, right? So negative 2. Negative 2 times 3. Hey, did you notice where I went? I went all the way back to the beginning. Okay, all right, so negative 3 times 2, or sorry, negative 2 times 3 is negative 6, plus 11, 5. What's the absolute value of 5? What is 5 times 4? What's 20 minus 5? Does 15 equal 15? So is this correct? Yes. Now, I think I forgot to do this on the last example, but sometimes when I check my answer, I literally put a check beside it so I know that I've checked it. You know what I'm saying? It's like a visual clue for myself to know that I've checked the answer. Okay? All right, so what about this? Negative 16 thirds. What's negative 16 thirds times 3? Do you know how to do that real quick? If you're multiplying 3 times 1 over 3, that's just a 1. So what's left? The negative 16, right? So what's negative 16 plus 11? Negative 5, right? What's the absolute value of negative 5? 5. What's 5 times 4? And 20 minus 5? So is this a right answer also? Yes. One more example. You ready? What? Before I do one more example, can we talk through real quick what we're thinking about in our head? What do we need to do first when we're solving an absolute value equation? Isolate the absolute value, right? I have to get the absolute value by itself. Once the absolute value is by itself, then what? I write two equations, right? Write two equations, solve each equation, and then check my answer, right? Seems pretty straightforward, yes? Absolute value of 2x minus 12 equals negative 6. Is the absolute value isolated? Yes. What do I do next? Write two equations. Is that what you want to do? Okay, we can do that. 2x minus 12 equals negative 6. Negative 2x minus 12 equals negative 6. Now what? Okay, if I add 12 to both sides, I'm left with 2x equals 6. And if I divide 2 on both sides, I get x equals 3. Next equation, are we distributing or are we dividing? You know I don't care, and you know both ways work. Distribute, okay? Negative 2x plus 12 equals negative 6. If I subtract 12 from both sides, negative 2x equals negative 18. And dividing by negative 2 gives me 9. 2 times 3, 6 minus 12. Absolute value of negative 6. 6 equals negative 6? 2 times 9. 18 minus 12. Absolute value of 6. 6 equals negative 6? Did we do something wrong? We did do something wrong, right? Not in our arithmetic. All our arithmetic is right, right? It was just completely unnecessary. Because why? Absolute value can't be negative. So if I saw this problem to begin with and thought to myself, oh, absolute value is not negative, what could I write right now? No solution. And what's my work? Like, write no credit or no work, no credit. So what's my work? Absolute value can't be negative. So all this underneath my hand right here, all that was unnecessary? Yeah, so am I mean for making you write that? Yes, okay, fine, that's fine. Number 1, yes, I am. Number 2, we got to practice a little bit. Like, we thought about all of our rules, except not all of them, right? So it's to kind of help you think about it from the very beginning. Got it? Okay. Your homework is on your Chromebook. Okay. Please remember to write work as you go to keep in the homework section of your notebook. Are there any questions before you get started?